Hello beautiful people, welcome back to another Flutter tutorial. And if I sound a little bit dull, I haven't been well for some time, but yeah, we're here. Hopefully during the video or the tutorial I would get some motivation and some energy. Alright, so today we continue with our layout, and the last time we looked at the container. Okay, right here. Today we are going to look at multi-child layout widgets, and specifically we are going to look at the column and not a flow but row. Okay, we are going to look at the column and then the row. Now these two widgets are used for laying out their children. Okay, notice how it says multi-child, so it has children. A column will lay out its children in what? A vertical direction. In a row will do that in a horizontal direction. Okay, now before we go into code, I actually just want to explain a few things here. Now when it comes to a row, okay, so let me see if I can, let's say this is oops, I didn't have a pen, so let me grab a pen. Let's say this is some mobile phone screen, okay, and now we need to use, let's say, a row. Okay, so when we use a row, we are going to lay some widgets or children, for example, in a horizontal fashion. Now there are some main properties that we have in a row and in a column that can be quite confusing. These are, we have the main axis alignment. I hope that's clear enough. And then we do also have the cross axis alignment. Okay, the row and the column make use of this, but they make use of them in a different way. Okay, so when it comes to a row, the main axis alignment is horizontal. Okay, so think horizontally, like the x-axis of a, what do you call that thing, a plane. So you have your y and you have your x-axis, so your x-axis and then your y-axis. When it comes to a row, think of the x-axis, so horizontally, so anything you are doing within the main axis of a row happens horizontally. So you see properties like start, which basically lays everything to the start of the screen. You would see end, which basically puts everything at the end of the screen. You have center, which basically centers everything. Okay, try to keep that in mind. Okay, we'll get to code very soon and you understand this. Now if we move on to something like a column, sorry, for a column, remember a column lays things vertically, like so. So when it comes to a column, the main axis alignment is vertical. So for a column is the y-axis. Okay, so think about positioning things vertically. Okay, so when we talk about end, main axis alignment dot end, okay, for a column, then you are thinking about doing things like this, placing things at the end. If a start, which is the default, if a center, you place them in the center, but all in a vertical form. Okay, now let me clear this, clear the canvas. Come on, clear the canvas. All right, now with this same thing, when we talk about the cross axis alignment for both, so cross axis alignment for a row slash a column. So let's imagine this is our fancy new mobile phone. Okay, so with the same idea, when we are talking of a row, for example, the cross-axis alignment is vertical. Okay, so it is still going to lay out children like so, but anything you do, it will try to position them vertically within the row. So assuming your row is this wide, okay, it will either place the objects at the very start, at the very end, or at the very center, which is usually the default. Okay, there's another property called baseline, but we'll talk about that later. Now, when this is applied to a column, what happens is that it's still going to lay the children out in a vertical fashion. Okay, so let's say you have your boxes again. I don't know why I am drawing boxes, but there we go. So the cross axis alignment, okay, for a column is horizontal. Okay, so that's the weird thing between the main and then the what do you call it, the cross axis alignment. They just flip, okay, from the previous explanation I gave. So for a column, the cross axis alignment is horizontal. So whatever you are doing, it is simply just placing them horizontally. So you can place them at the very start like that, or at the very end, or at the very center. Okay, so when it comes to cross axis alignment, for a column it's horizontal, for a row it's vertical, and when it comes to main axis alignment, as we saw, it is the opposite. Okay, it is the opposite. So again, cross axis alignment for a row is vertical, for a column is horizontal placements. Okay, now when it comes to main axis alignment, for a row it is what? Horizontal, and then for a column it is vertical. Placements are done vertically. Main axis alignment for a row, placements are done along the x-axis. Now I hope this kind of makes some sense. Let's get onto the code so that we can see how this actually works and looks like. Alright guys, so we continue from where we left off. So this was the last thing we did concerning the container. So today, since we are going to look at a row and a column, why don't we name this row column app? Just like so, and I'll copy this name and then just replace this entire thing. We shouldn't have any complaints. And then what I'll do is my background color for the scaffold, I'm gonna make this blue, and you know what, I don't need this. I don't need this also. And then here the child would be a row widget, and remember, a row takes children, not that, children. Okay, and just for us to make sure everything is working, I'm going to save this. Nothing is happening, so let's reload this. Alright, so as you can see, we don't really have anything, and that's because there's nothing in for our children. Okay, we have no child. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use let's say some icons. Okay, so we do that with icon. So icon, okay, singular. Then inside we will call icons, plural, use the dot operator, and then let's use some stars. So icon.star, and then let's make the size let's say 50, I don't want this to wrap, so I'm going to get rid of I'm going to get rid of this comma, bring my pointer out, and then put a comma here and then save. Okay, so that looks kind of tiny. Well, let's see. How about 100? Much better. So the VS Code tip, I want to duplicate this line. Okay, so I could just copy and paste twice, but what I'll do is holding down the Shift key and the Alt key, and then pressing the down arrow key duplicates that line, another down arrow key duplicates that. Okay, just make sure your cursor is just at the end of what you want to duplicate. And now if we save this, we get these. Okay, I think they are actually too big. So here's another tip. If you want to change multiple things at the same time, hold down the Alt key and then just click where you want to edit. So I'm going to press backspace. Let's make this say 70. Save that. Yeah, I think we'll manage with these. Okay, so now let's look at how the row handles the main axis alignment. So remember, for a row, main axis alignment is what? Horizontal. Everything you do, it lays or arranges the children horizontally. So by default, this is end, you have center, and then you have what? Start. Sorry, I have flipped the entire thing. So this is start, end, and then center. So let's look at that. So let's call main axis alignment. Why do I keep getting main size? Come on. Main axis alignment, and then main axis alignment. Seems like IntelliSense is going crazy. So if we start with end and then save this, you notice how it moves all the stars to the end horizontally. Okay, when it's main axis alignment, don't think of anything coming up or down. It's all horizontal. Now the next thing here is, if we go back to start, which is the default, okay, it just puts everything at the beginning. If we go on to SP, so we have space around, space between, and space evenly. So space around, what space around does is, come on, I'm saving that. So space around is going to make sure that there's space around your widgets. Okay, so you see, notice these two spaces here are the same, but whatever space is left is shared between the end sides here. Okay, that's how space around works. Now let's look at the other. So space evenly, I believe. So space evenly, when we save this, space evenly makes sure that the space that is between each widget is even. So this, that, and that are the same. I hope that's okay. And we have space between. Now space between doesn't care about the ends. Okay, it just makes sure that the space between each widget is equal. It doesn't regard the end. So just like space, what do you call it, space around would consider that, but space between doesn't. Okay, so take note of that. All right, so these are the main properties that usually you would want to be using when you're working with a row. These apply to a column also, but this works slightly different. And in fact, there's one last property I just want to talk about, which is what you saw earlier, which is the main axis size. So if we say main axis size, so what am I typing? So the main axis size, so I have to type this again, man. VS Code isn't helping me. So if I say main axis size dot min, what this simply means is that my row wouldn't take up the entire width anymore. It will take up as much as it has to cover up all the widgets. So I have 1, 2, 3, and that's all. So there's no need for it to get over there. It's going to just end over there. Okay, so take note of this. Now let's move on to the column. So all we have to do is simply change this to a column widget, just like that. And now when I save this, you notice how we have everything laid in a column, one on top of the other. This is one of the most used layout widgets you would find yourself when you're building layouts in Flutter. So as already said, when we talk about the main axis with a column, everything is being laid vertically. So start and center. Okay, so let's look at that. So it's called main axis alignment, and then main axis alignment, and then let's start with end as usual. So if you say end, notice everything moves down to the bottommost part, the end, okay, vertically. Okay, remember that about a column. So if we make this start, which is the default, you know what, we've seen start already, so let's just go ahead with space between. So the same idea, space between, doesn't care about the spaces over there. Okay, and then we have space around. So space around halves the space and then shares it between the ends so that there's space around. And then we have space evenly. So yeah, similar thing. As you can see, make sure that the space is even throughout. And of course, if you go ahead to use the if I can spell, so main axis size here too, and set this to main axis size. Come on, give me that. And then hit save. You notice that it would also shrink to as many widgets as it should. Okay, and of course the opposite is max, which says, okay, you know what, take up everything you can find, take up all the space. Okay, so essentially this is how the main axis affects the column and then the row. Okay, so the next one we are going to look at is the cross axis. So remember the cross axis? So let's take a look at that. So since we have a column, I'll just continue with the column. So with the column widget, for us to see this properly, I'm going to increase the size of this to 200. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm doing this so that we can actually see how the cross axis works. So sorry, remember how I said the cross axis alignment, okay, for a column works horizontally this time. Okay, meaning that anything we do is going to lay out, sorry about my phone, is going to lay out the widgets horizontally. Okay, so let's look at that. So if I say the dot operator and then I say end, okay, watch what happens. Notice how it lays everything to the end. Now I intentionally made this big so that we can actually see this working well. Okay, if they're the same size, they'll both move, but I just wanted you to have a look at that. And then if we make this, of course, start, then you'll see this happen. Okay, then we have center, basically places everything in the center. Oops, mistakenly pressed something. Yeah, so if this is confusing you, I can actually revert this back to 70, save this, and you can see what happens. Our what do you call it, the column isn't big enough, so we didn't really see what is going on. Okay, I would have to stretch this, so I'm going to go back and put this back to, was it 200? Yeah, so that we can clearly see. So everything is in the center there. Alright, so I hope this makes some sense. So if we say stretch, watch what happens. It stretches the entire column horizontally. Remember, column lays out its children vertically, and so if you want to do things vertically, you use what, main axis. But if you want to do things horizontally, you use the cross axis. I almost said croxically. Anyway, okay, so I hope that makes sense. And so I'm going to get rid of this. Let's save this, and then I'll simply change this to a row, and then we can have a look at that. So just like that, this looks like start, the default. So for a row, when we say cross axis alignment, and then we call cross axis alignment dot center, then notice what happens. Nothing. Why isn't anything happening? Because the default is these guys are already centered, remember? So let's go for something like end, and then save this, and now you can see they move down because our container here containing our row is stretched because of this bigger star, and so we're able to see how this works. And then we can say start. Well, if you say stretch, it stretches out everything as you saw, okay? But then we're not going for that, we want star. And then when we save this, you can see everything moves towards the start, okay? So when you're working with rows and columns, you're going to be mixing these up here and there to get the actual layout that you want, okay? And then one last property I would like to touch on is the baseline property. I haven't talked about it, and I said we'll do that. So let's see how we're going to use this. So now this really works well when you're working with a row widget. Okay, so for this, I'm going to get rid of the stars and then get rid of this also. I may regret taking that off. So for our children this time, text will be the best thing for us. So let's get in the text, and then for our text here, we are going to say, since we are doing baseline, let's say baseline. Okay, so let's say baseline, and then let's style this text. So we haven't gone far in this, but this is just by the way so that we can see things happening properly. So I'm going to put in a comma, and then we'll call in style, and then we want a text style. Okay, this is just something you'll get used to soon. And then this text style provides us with color, font family, a whole lot of things that we can use. Okay, so one of these that we can go for is font size. We can say maybe 30. Let's save this and see what we have. Looks a little bit small. Let's go for 60. Yeah, this looks okay, and I'm happy with this. The next thing we can do is, this is something small, so let me let this come this way. That's perfect. I'll duplicate this as usual, so using the same shortcut, Shift Alt down arrow, and I'm going to have the same text baseline, but I'm going to have this smaller, let's say 20, and then save this. Okay, now notice how the smaller baseline just hangs over there. Now if you're building something that needed this to be lined up at the bottom of this baseline, okay, you would see along the line you might build an app that has something like that needs to have that type of look. Then what you want to do is you would go to your row widget, okay, you will set your cross axis alignment to cross axis alignment.baseline. So where are you? So you know what, let me put in center, then look for baseline. There you are. And then if I save this, we are going to get an error, and it says that text baseline shouldn't be equal to null. So it's a required property. So we have to come below and enter text baseline. Okay, and the property here is text baseline dot alphabetic. Okay, so if you put our pointer here, the horizontal line used to align the bottom of glyphs for alphabetic characters, which is like what we have. And then when I save this, you can see how it places that at the baseline. Okay, so guys, I hope this helps you in one way or the other. If you are not clear about something, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to check it up and then help you out. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share this. This has been Happy Cat, and I'll see you in the next video tutorial.